All right, let's just kick it off. Welcome back to the podcast. Of course, my podcast co-host, Joey Levy. We've had a whirlwind last couple weeks. We were in south of France, a couple big company launches, a massive announcement that Betr crossed 1 million followers on TikTok. So this is going to be a great episode. What's top of mind, man? I think we've just been on a whirlwind, just back to back, traveling on planes, doing deals, making announcements.
Yeah, no, a lot going on. Obviously, you just alluded to some of it, but a lot of traveling. Super happy to be back in Miami, back in routine, dialed in. For a lot of industries, summer is kind of like a slow period, and from sort of like a revenue and handle perspective for Betr, it is a relatively slow period because NFL and NBA represent the lion's share of the business, and those sports are really in full swing during Q4, Q1, et cetera. But what that means is the summer period is really a critical time for us to prepare for NFL coming up. So really a lot of what you see at the company right now is, during June, July, August, preparing for the beginning of NFL in early September. It'll be here before we know it. There's a lot of really critical product development initiatives that we're working on that we just need to get done ahead of the NFL season that are going to have a significant impact on whether or not we're going to hit our full year forecast or not. So yeah, I think it's just a combination of like maybe enjoying a little bit of the downtime, but it really just a significant effort to ensure we execute ahead of the
I feel like
NFL
you're being
season.
too humble in terms of downtime. I know that in terms of just the metrics, I don't know if I'm scooping anything, but I think it's fair to say that Betr is beating forecasts. So it's just like, it's not even slow. I mean, I think it's just more just like things are going above plan. Things are going better than expected in that sense, in terms of just like a board forecast. And then I think like literally a week ago, we had Jake Paul, Sean O'Malley here talking about W, which is a massive deodorant, men's personal care launch.
Let's talk about that a little bit more.
I know you're an investor and partner with us on that one as well. So just the overall business empire is expanding and building.
I mean, as somebody who's on the founding team of W, like how would you describe the initial launch? How's it gone? I mean, it's been about a little bit less than a month now, right? 3 or 4 weeks.
We launched officially on June 12th nationwide. So we'll flash some of the clips and press releases and some of the viral videos at Jake. We have some great co-owners like Sugar Sean O'Malley, Ruby Rose, some other folks that we'll be announcing quite shortly. It's been better than expected. I think the expectations are always very high when you have someone like a Jake Paul and a Walmart national launch. But in terms of metrics, in terms of breaking sales velocity records, we'll have more to release as we have formalized all the specific numbers. But so far, so good, right? And knock on wood.
Yeah, we got some wood there.
We got some wood here. It's early, right? It's been 2, 3, 4 weeks since launch. We're stocking out of a lot of deodorants at different Walmarts.
So deodorant's by far the most popular product right now?
Yeah, deodorant is really popular. Body spray is really popular. But I low-key think that the body wash is our best product in some sense. So all the products are great. The feedback has been awesome. I think when you think about W, I think we'll be probably well known for just like the viral marketing, the skits, the content. But I always remind the team that ultimately we're a product company, right? We're not just making memes and content for fun. No, we're making the content in support of the product. So the product needs to stand as world-class, better for you, no weird ingredients. So I think you'll see a lot of product expansion in the coming weeks and months. So the pipeline in terms of new products, new SKUs, new scents, a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline.
To preview what's coming from a product standpoint, you prefer to keep that private for now?
I don't want to scoop Jake or the team, but there's going to be some new scents, new SKUs coming very, very shortly. So stay tuned. The social handles, it's called W, or you just follow Jake. I know the Betr team has been an amazing partner in amplifying a lot of the launch. So follow Betr, so you see some of the content coming out from Betr as well in terms of the new scents and all that stuff that's coming literally in weeks. So it's super early, very exciting,
exciting,
and a lot more to come.
Yeah, there's really, I mean, obviously we invested and, very excited to be involved in the business. And, I talked to my team about this at Betr to some extent, and we've spoken about this as well. It's like, as somebody running a sports gaming business, on the sportsbook side, we're competing with FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, Caesars, ESPN Bet, Fanatics, Hard Rock, Bet365. I mean, all of those 8 companies I just described are multi-billion-dollar enterprise value businesses with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on the balance sheet. Really strong management teams, really strong execution. And then on the fantasy side, you have Prize Picks, Underdog, Sleeper, et cetera. So my point is, it's, going from a significantly highly competitive market with really well-capitalized incumbents who are just savages to, you look at the men's care category, and I don't want to diminish Old Spice or Axe, but it doesn't seem like it seems like the competitive set is a lot more up for the taking in terms of just like not having to deal with as much competition with respect to just Gen Z, 10 to 25-year-old men being digitally and social media native. It just seems like there's like a real opportunity to kind of be the only ones who are creating content, marketing, and delivering product for this demographic. Obviously from a better perspective, we've had a lot of success breaking through the noise despite all of these competitive dynamics. But I mean, it's like the level of competition feels just a little bit lighter. If I don't know if you'd agree with that.
I would agree 50%, but also remind us that Procter & Gamble and Unilever are
right.
Fortune 10, Fortune 50 companies, right?
Yeah,
and these are bigger companies than DraftKings, FanDuel's. But right, like if you actually look at the aisles at your Walmart, Target, CVS's, these retailers, it's really a monopoly of these multinational corporations. Of half the brands are owned by Unilever, the other half are Procter & Gamble, and there are some startups. And in some sense, I would say Betr and W are in the same boat. We are taking an innovative approach. We're going to be aggressive in terms of speaking to the next generation, doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But maybe I would agree with you in the sense that DraftKings, FanDuel, the other competitors in more of the fantasy space are a little bit more startup-y, I would say.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, I guess to like reframe what I was saying, it's
yeah.
more just like, yes, they're a little bit more like digitally native.
Yeah.
They've founded their businesses a lot more recently than some of these other companies, and inherently have had to be disruptive relatively recently because there was very recent regulatory change, right?
Yeah.
And then fantasy sports as a category only really started to proliferate 10, 15 years ago with DFS. So I guess it's more on they're more startup-y. I think that's probably a way a better way to put it. But you're right. I mean, P&G and Unilever
they're juggernauts.
They're juggernauts.
Like I think,
and they're not going to make your life that easy, I'm sure. I mean,
exactly.
As you start eating into their market
think,
share.
I think we, just seeing in terms of Logan's company Prime against the big hydration companies, as well as Mr. Beast competing with all the, the Hershey's of the world. I think we do want to be somewhat humble in terms of really standing up to the juggernauts of Procter & Gamble and Unilever. I think there's a lot to respect in terms of just being like literally 100-plus-year-old companies that have consolidated and survived multiple generations. So I think there's a lot to respect and learn from. But I think that's like the beauty of entrepreneurship and startups. I think we do have, we think, a better product, a better angle, and a better resonance of what people want today. Yeah. And that's our angle. But it doesn't mean that I would say that we think they're weak or incompetent. I think that's what has made Betr so strong. So there is great competition that makes the entire Betr team sharper.
Yeah.
So I don't want W to come in being very complacent, like, oh, we have one of the most popular creators in Jake Paul being the founder of this company, therefore we automatically win the next generation. No. Like, we cannot be complacent. I think competition makes us sharper, and we will be tested. And just as Betr has been tested and you get refined in that crucible, I think that the more pressure, the earlier we face that pressure, the better the company outcome. And I think if you look at the history of the best businesses that have been built, whether that's Meta, Facebook with social media, that was not the first company in that space, but they've been tested, challenged, scrutinized, and Mark Zuckerberg is now just a savage, brilliant business person. Same thing with rideshare, with Uber, Airbnb, all the greatest companies have had to be tested. So I think we're ready for that long haul of just making sure we have great product, great marketing, and great operation, great execution. And we'll see what the market decides. Ultimately, it's the consumers that decide who wins and who doesn't. To me, obviously, I use personal care products. I like having better, healthier personal care products. But to me, I think W, if it's ultimately successful, I think it's a culture company. Meaning that, and I know Jake feels very strongly about this, is that he wants to be a role model for young men today. We feel like there's so many of the brands just speak to coastal elites. There's super expensive products, like a $15, $20 stick of deodorant. And it's like, that's just too expensive for most normal Americans. And that was one of the key decisions in terms of making sure that everything that we sell is under $8. It's affordable, but it's better quality than everything else out there. So we're trying to solve a real problem and speak to a generation of young men. And I think if you just look at all the statistics, a lot of young men don't have strong friend groups. A lot of young men don't know how to talk to girls. A lot of young men are unconfident and have psychological issues or just a desire to work hard and compete. And I think Jake manifests that in terms of going from content creator to professional boxer and just changing industries, being being a co-founder of Betr and just changing how sports betting and sports media is done. And I think with W, we also, this is kind of the latest iteration of speaking to a generation of young men in terms of how to be men. So to me, that's what gets me excited about W. It just, I love the sense of W, which stands for win, but I also like that it also stands for work, right? Like work hard, blue collar work ethic. Nothing is given to you. You got to work hard and go get it. A lot of the initial imagery around W was the 90s Bulls, like just kind of like that original Fast and Furious, just like a little bit bloody, a little bit gritty, not super polished, not super androgynous, just treating young men like young men. And I think that's a message that, I think there's a number of great messages that are out there, and we support all the, I think those are all great messages, but I think W wants to speak towards young men. And I think even that just distinction is important.
I think that's all super well said. One other thing about sort of the branding and the launch that really resonated with me and I really liked, and I think is an important message for not just young men, but for everybody, is this notion of turning losses into wins, right? And I know Jake very deliberately wanted that L to be in the W brand, because that's something where, like, you don't want to deliberately fail, obviously. You don't want to lose. But there was, like, I saw on, like, X or some quote where somebody was like, I don't lose. I either win or I learn, right? And that mentality is so important because, and we've spoken about this potentially even on this podcast, like the best learning experiences that I've had have come from failure. And, how you respond to failure is ultimately going to determine your life in the future. So I really like that message too.
I feel like I gotta steal whatever that your quote or that quote, but L for loss, but like L should be for learn. No, I think it's a great way to spin that.
I either win or I learn.
Yeah.
There's no losing.
And I think
you only lose if you lose, and then you're kind of debilitated as a result of that, and you're unable to emerge and learn and continue and be better, right? That's when you truly lose. But if you make a mistake, own up to it, learn from it, and be better as a result of it. And it's a learning experience.
I think you and I saw that personally behind the scenes with Jake. We were both in Riyadh for his loss against Tommy Fury. It was a close fight, right? It was a split decision. It wasn't like...
That could have gone either way.
I mean, I think like, I think we were just sort of just almost commiserating in a sense that it was a close fight in terms of like the most powerful punch in the fight was that
Jake knocked him down. Yeah,
it was a knockdown.
Jake never hit the floor.
Yeah.
His opponent did.
But I think what is actually true is I remember we had that little sad pizza party in the Four Seasons
That's right.
Riyadh.
It was like 4 a.m., Four Seasons in Riyadh in the lobby. And I think it was like me, you, Jake, Jeff Ransdell,
Pam,
Jake's mom, a couple of others. And that's what we were doing after the fight.
Yeah. And I think even the next day, I think he internalized, and I don't think, like, again, I don't want to gas Jake up more than he needs to be gassed up, but I think he was already just kind of internalizing, learning from, like, he wasn't like crying or complaining. Like,
no, he was processing.
And and it's like I don't think he needs to be gassed up more than he needs to be complimented more than he needs to be. I think he actually was living that ethos where I think very quickly, I think there was that point where he could be complaining and all that stuff, but I think he decided really quickly actually to be like, all right, I'm going to learn from this. And I know that like as soon as he came back to the States and Puerto Rico, he was back in camp.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of just like the ferocity in which he like pushed business, pushed camp, pushed training. I mean, I think when was that? That was like...
That was, I think, February 23. Yeah.
I mean, I think that
was
was
less than a year and a half ago.
And I think that was like before I think Betr like really came to its own too. I think in terms of the
it was a few months after we launched Betr Media, but it was before we hard launched our gaming business. We hard launched our gaming business September of that year, so we still needed a few months.
And I could tell that the ambition in terms of Jake feeling that sting of a loss and converting it into motivation to like just do more. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I don't know how public we've been in the numbers of Betr, but like just really...
It's a big business.
I don't know if it's record breaking or whatever claims they want to say in terms of, but like the business with Betr was, I mean, we in that 2023 year, that's been an epic year for Betr.
Yeah.
And I think obviously the team at Betr has been a huge part of it, but also including of Jake in terms of pushing, making sure that like, I don't know, again, hundreds of thousands of users are depositing money and playing and enjoying the experience.
Yeah, that's the one metric we'll publicly disclose. We have hundreds of thousands of active paying customers.
Yeah.
Which is, less than a year in. So
which again, I think in terms of looking at historicals is got to be the fastest or one of the fastest growing gaming businesses and media businesses that have been built, right? And I think the 1 million followers in terms of Betr Media on TikTok, I think speaks to that, right? Like it is now the biggest sports betting media brand, right? Like,
the largest sports gaming media brand on social. Yeah. We're the first ones to hit 1 million followers on TikTok, and I guess just to cover that, since you brought it up, it's what's particularly exciting about that accomplishment is, we made a very deliberate decision when we started the company that from a distribution and marketing perspective, we were going to go all in on original short form video content. I've said from day one, and Jake really, obviously has pioneered a lot of this on the internet in general, outside of just sports, but outside of consuming live sporting events themselves, original short form video, in our opinion, is going to be the predominant way sports fans consume sports related media content and potentially media content in general. That's kind of where the world is going. So what you could say what you want about TikTok politically, whatever, but there's no doubt that TikTok has the best algorithm for rewarding the highest quality, highest viral potential, original short form video content. So by being the first company that hit that million follower milestone, which is significant for a brand, I mean, like for individuals, it's still significant, but for a brand to accomplish that level of affinity and audience growth in such a short period of time, we did this in less than 2 years. It just speaks to the team's execution capability around original short form video, yep. Which we think the other social media platforms are ultimately going to end up looking more like TikTok rather than less. And you see that already with Instagram, with IG Reels. You see that with YouTube. They're investing very heavily into YouTube Shorts. And you're going to see more and more of this proliferate across the social media landscape. Yeah. And so it's a good accomplishment for the team. We're proud of it. And you know, we took the team out on a boat to celebrate on Saturday, and you know, somebody came up to me and they're like, "Yeah, what are we going to do for 2 million?" I'm like, "We're not doing shit for 2 million. We're going to do something for 10 million.
There you go.
We're going to do something for 100 million, and then we'll do something really big for $1 billion, right?" But you know, now it's like the next million should be faster than this last million. It took about 22 months for the first million. I don't know how long it'll take for us to get to 2 million, but it should take, you know, shorter than 22 months. And
that's
we'll
why
keep
Joey's a great
there.
CEO. You can't be happy with linear growth. It has to be exponential.
It has to be
1
exponential.
to 2.
Yeah.
The first million, really hard. The second million, not so hard.
Yeah.
Get to 10 million. That's a real milestone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Then we'll, you know, we'll celebrate again.
No, and I think that the one thing that I want to just underline is that I think we're both academic by nature, in the sense that like we're students of the game, and part of it we could be just talking about it and just like in our little like boardrooms being ha ha ha, we figured out a little trick. But I think this is why you and I are doing this podcast, which is that in terms of authentic content, short form, making podcasts, we feel like not only is the business itself interesting in terms of the sports betting product or the personal care and all the businesses that we're involved with, or the venture capital and all of that, but also the art and the behind the scenes of the business itself, right? I think the lessons that we're learning in practice in the battleground today is very interesting. Of course, one, I think we're somewhat altruistic to just share the knowledge, but two, I think we are having real content that people yearning to learn.
Yep.
And I think very few entrepreneurs in our age demographic of late 20s, 30s are actually at the cutting edge, sharing the alpha as we're learning it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's like, yeah, we want to be altruistic, but partly I think we can win market share in terms of tastemaking, how brands are built. Right? That's what I want to do this for. Of course, I want to share learnings. I want to do more stuff with you, Joey, but partly it's like, hey, I think we have some good knowledge and more people should learn from us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a win-win proposition, I think, right? Like, hopefully people watching this are getting value, and I think they are. I mean, you know, I think this is maybe the third or fourth time we've done this, and so we're still super early, and I think we're like, you know, finding our way here, but I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people. I mean, dozens of people have reached out to me saying that, you know, they watched the past episodes, they got a lot of value from it. You know, I got some follow-up questions from people, and you know, people are engaged, and you know, I think we're doing something that nobody else is really doing in terms of in real time providing some of these insights and updates in a very candid, transparent manner. So it's valuable to the audience. And then we've spoken about this too, like, you know, as we sort of develop our own you know, audiences on social, and you know, we just have more people and enthusiasm around and awareness of the things we're doing. I think that's gonna, you know, create advantages for us from a business perspective, which is why we're doing this. And then I think the other thing too is like, we're building a media company with Betr Media, and I want to, like, you know how it gets done, right? So like putting myself in the seat and getting a little bit of taste of what the Betr Media team is doing day in and day out has been valuable for me. Certainly enables me to be a little bit more empathetic with respect to like what goes into making content.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing we're doing here, for sure.
And just to give you some flowers, right? It's just watch how Joey presents and speaks to it, because I think not a lot of people in their 20s have, I think at this point in your career, raised close to $250 million of equity across your different businesses and the venture funds that you've been a part of, right? Like,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like, that's not easy to be able to array that much capital across projects. So, of course, there's the actual metrics of the projects themselves, but there is something to the people behind. How can someone so quickly amass and allocate so much resources, right? And I think it's part of just studying how Joey speaks, presents, builds narratives around the projects he talks about. And I think that manifests in just how you have conversations. So kudos to you in terms of just doing this and sharing how you speak. Because I think a lot of the greatest entrepreneurs, I think, you know, like Jensen Huang, right? He's what, 50, 60-year-old Taiwanese American guy. Like he wasn't doing a podcast in his 20s and 30s. I would love to see him talk about like
that's a great
when
point,
he's 20 and 30s, like building an NVIDIA
like what
and
was
like
going through his mind at the time,
like,
how he was sort of holding himself and articulating what he was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was savage
awesome
at the time,
Yeah.
but now it's like he's a wise, gray-haired guy talking about AI chips, but at the time, NVIDIA, like if you're a gamer nerd like me, you knew of NVIDIA as gaming GPU chips. I remember like I wanted to buy like the NVIDIA GPU so I could play my StarCraft or Warcraft. And now it's like the A100, H100, B100, all the AI chips. But it's like very interesting that his entrepreneurial energy and his ambition scope spanned across gaming GPUs to he's just running tech now. I mean, he is the most valuable company in the world.
Yeah.
$3 trillion plus market cap.
It's wild how quickly that's grown.
Right.
But what's interesting about him from like a sort of content perspective is, because you're right, I don't think I mean, I'm sure there's probably footage somewhere, but like I haven't seen any footage of him younger sort of talking about what he was trying to build. But more recently, you go on X and I've seen so many clips of him just being shared recently.
Yeah.
And it's pretty remarkable to like watch him speak, and his management style is also pretty differentiated, right? Like he is publicly sort of disclosing how he doesn't do one-on-one meetings. He has like 50 to 60 direct reports. He doesn't it's a very flat organization at the top. And like when I heard that, it made me question, should I have one-on-one meetings? Should I have a flatter organization, right? I'm not saying that I'm doing that and acting upon it just because Jensen, said that that's what he's doing. I think every organization is different. Every, team is different, and the requirements of the businesses are different, but it's helpful to get that in, just to hear what other people are doing at the highest level, right? So, hopefully more entrepreneurs will get in front of a camera and sort of articulate why they do what they do and how they do what they do. Because I think that would be really helpful to a lot of people.
I've definitely been studying Jensen a little bit recently. And I know you're a history major at Columbia before you dropped out. So maybe you'd appreciate this. But he's, to me, is essentially a neo-Calvinist. Remember Calvinism in terms of American pioneers? So Calvinism is a strain or a sect of Christianity that speaks towards pain and suffering as in a hard work ethic in terms of being like the elected to go to heaven. And it's interesting to me that he talks so much about eating pain and working hard and suffering as a way to find enlightenment in some sense. So it's just funny to me that the way he articulates, the way he drives his culture is so much about sacrifice in terms of finding enlightenment. And I guess in his view, enlightenment is creating AGI / returning a lot of shareholder value.
Yeah.
Right. So I think in some sense, it's like very interesting how you tie some of these company philosophies into almost like tried and true religious principles.
Yeah.
Because a lot of his language is about like suffering, pain, working hard, sacrificing.
No, suffering is the one word you hear the most.
Yeah, he's just him. like I wish upon you suffering, because that's how you get resilience and learning.
Well, it's kind of what we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when you deal with a lot of bullshit and you're trying to do something really hard, it's going to be a bumpy road, and there's going to be, some highs, but a lot of lows, and embracing that is, I guess, being like transparent about and open to and seeking to embrace that is what helps you get through it, because people don't talk about that. Like our school system is a good example of that, right? Like we're teaching all of our kids to like be super obedient, that they got to get everything right. And, it doesn't like mold people into like taking risks and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And so I think it's good that he's out there kind of saying this, because not a lot of people talk about it, and it's not a popular thing to talk about, but you got to be willing to put up with a lot of suffering for a long period of time if you want to be successful.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen super quick. I mean, you were talking about my capital raising capabilities, for example, and I mean, I've been an entrepreneur now for like 10 years. I dropped out of college about 10 years ago and started down this path, and I would say I had only raised 2 or 3 million of the total 200 million plus over the first like 6 or 7 years. So for the majority of the time, 60 to 70% of my time,
grinding.
I was grinding.
Yeah.
I had no resources.
Yeah.
And only until recently have I been able to accelerate my capability to marshal resources. And that's a result of like literally traveling the world, eating shit in this industry, being laughed out of rooms, like trying and failing and learning and trying again. And not a lot of people have the tolerance for the pain along the way. It has not been fun.
Yeah. Right.
It's been fulfilling. It's been rewarding. It's been gratifying. But the majority of the time, it's not, you're not like, it's not chill.
Yeah. And I think I think it's important to just reflect to just American culture in general, right? Like maybe we turn it a little bit more broad here, which is that don't you feel like at some point in your childhood, it went from like compete and win to everyone gets participation awards? Like I felt like it was our generation. I remember when I was in elementary school.
You're right.
Like,
yeah. It's depressing.
I was competing with people. It's like, okay, you're the best.
Yeah.
Like you are number one in your class. And then somewhere I feel like in my middle school to high school, it was like, no
right.
competition. Don't stress out. Like, don't let kids kill each other. Everyone wins. Participation. Yeah. I don't know, like when in your childhood that flipped.
So anecdotally, I remember, I think between first and second grade, I was told by my mom or a teacher or something, I was now part of the gifted program.
Yeah.
Right? We had a gifted program, and just trying to understand what that meant. I think it was represented to me as like, oh, you're smart, you have potential, and we want you to be around other smart people, and we're going to like accelerate your academic program to like see how much you could handle, how quickly can you sort of, do calculus in ninth grade and do all this other shit that like takes some of the other kids longer to do.
Did you actually take calculus in ninth grade?
I think I did it in
so you took like AP
ninth
calculus?
and 10th. Yeah, AP Calc. And
when did you do AP Calc?
I did AP Calc in 10th grade, I think.
Calc BC?
I can't remember if I did BC. I think I probably did BC in 11th grade. I either did both in 10th or I did one in 10th and one in 11th.
I still remember this because I was like really good at tests and shit. I remember I did Algebra 1 in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And then, I took the AP Calc BC in 10th grade.
Yeah.
But I felt like me looking back now, I felt like I probably could have done like algebra in like 3rd grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just because people should have just been like, yo.
No, I remember when I started, I'm like, people were representing it as like
oh my God, it's impossible. And it's just like, maybe if no one gave you constraints, maybe you're just doing calculus BC when you're 10.
Yeah.
Like, what is the constraint of derivatives and integrals? Like, they're calculations. I feel like even now, it's just like, they're more complex concepts, but they're just calculations. And I felt like if you just don't prescribe, hey, algebra is very complicated. Because I think you read like a lot of the media now with like different school districts. Oh, math is hard. Don't teach algebra until you're in high school now. like teaching algebra to middle schoolers is like too stressful for
Well,
kids.
the biggest representation of this trend that you correctly sort of described somewhere along the way, you know, middle school, high school, so something happened, and the biggest mistake was the colleges stopped accepting SAT scores. I mean, and I think they're starting to reverse this a little bit, but like, that's crazy to me.
Were you
That's
good at
the
SATs?
I did pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like study as much. I went to like a basic sort of public charter school here in South Florida, and I didn't, you know, I wasn't like put through a program where like beginning in middle school, like some of my colleagues at Columbia, like it was very clear that they were sort of being like nurtured to
Crush
you know,
SATs.
crush SATs, you know, beginning in like 6th or 7th grade. I didn't have any of that, right? Like I read a few of the practice books. I got like 1 or 2 questions wrong on each of the sections, but it was like close to a perfect score, I think, and got me into Columbia, and you know, that was my objective, was to go to an Ivy League school in an urban city. So it was either Harvard or Columbia, and Columbia is the one that I got into. And nowadays, for other reasons, I'm a little bit I'm less enthusiastic to talk about my affiliation with the school for you know, some of the things that are going on there. But anyways, when they stopped accepting the SAT score, like how do you measure the, I mean, I guess you could look at GPA and you could look at written essays.
It's just idiocy, right?
It's just like, it's crazy.
It's like the
to
NFL
me.
draft. No, we're not going
to do combine anymore.
Yeah,
we're not going to do the combine anymore.
Yeah. It's just idiocy. It's just like there's of course, SAT score doesn't judge a complete human being, but it's like a combine. It's like, okay, you have some core metrics of, does this person understand basic math and reading and writing? Does this person have some study habits? And can I take a test?
Yeah.
What is school? Studying and taking a test.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course that correlates, right? It's just idiocy that like, oh, tests are not good, but we want people to study really hard in competitive schools. But the test stuff is not correlative to performance. No, of course it's correlative.
Yeah, hopefully they keep reversing this trend. But
yeah, I mean, I think I know speaking for myself, like I was a very good multiple choice test taker. I remember I passed out of college language requirements because I was so good at like multiple choice stuff that I kind of aced the Spanish SAT too. So I didn't need to take a foreign language at Stanford.
That's awesome.
But I'm not very conversant in Spanish.
Yeah.
But like I could do the
hack
grammar and
the
and the conjugation correctly, where I could just like pass the language requirements. So of course, like I'm humble to know that multiple choice tests don't mean that you're smart or not smart. But of course, it correlates to, again, study habits, knowing how to take tests. Like, how else are you measuring in this world? Like, you got to perform at some point.
Yeah. And look, if there's better solutions than the SAT or some of these tests, like, I think everybody's all ears, right? But like, there's got to be one sort of standard, like, document and system that everybody's held accountable to.
Yeah. But I think it correlates to not just like school, but it correlates to company performance. Because end of the day, it's like, what is running a P&L for a company? Is that kind of a test? It's like, well, you got to make a business that makes more money than it loses.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a test.
Yeah.
Like life is just a series of random tests and projects.
Yep.
And it's just like, if you can't fill out some multiple choice stuff, how can you run $1 billion business? So to me, it's like, of course you should be able to crush tests.
Yeah.
Because like real life is harder.
Yeah, no, 1,000%.
Right?
1,000%.
You can't study like little math problems, and you can't study reading and writing exercises.
Yeah, try real life.
Try real life.
Try building a business against a bunch of, several multi-billion-dollar companies run by savages, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be successful if you can't take a fucking test.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like, and I think even with American like culture, I think it's also, we're in a global economy. I think that the world is a very complicated and competitive, maybe dangerous place, right? Like we think that Russia, China, other nations aren't just like savagely cultivating their next generation of young people. Just be like, yo, study, grind, make stuff. So I think in terms of just culture, whether we manifest it in the companies that we start or invest in, and the messages that we bring out, I think it's important from like a nation state perspective. We want a culture that rewards and cultivates people that work hard, study. Like otherwise, what is this country about?
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I mean, to your point, like in Russia, China, some of, these other places that are, potentially adversarial to some respect based on, conflicting objectives and priorities on the global scale, like they're looking at what's happening here and they're probably laughing and they're excited, right? Because they're getting a leg up.
Yeah.
But I think things are changing, right? I think things are changing in the right direction, and it's going to be a really interesting few months now with the election coming up. And I think you left on Thursday night, but stayed back and watched the debate. I'm assuming you probably saw it.
Yeah, I caught a bit of it.
I don't know if we want to get political at all.
Sure, why not?
Like,
let's talk a little bit. I mean, I think
that was
we are American citizens that care for the country.
Yeah,
like we're patriots. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You want to lead off with your thoughts?
I mean, look, I don't want to like talk about who I'm supporting or not supporting or whatever. Like but it was concerning to say the least. I mean, it was it was concerning to watch that, and I'm concerned. That's like the best way to put it, right? Like I mean, Biden's performance was, and Trump wasn't perfect by any means, but like he was able to speak with like a level of vitality and alertness, and he was articulating his positions whether you agree with them or not. And it's just like Biden literally mid-sentence just couldn't complete thoughts and was saying things that didn't really make sense. And I think about running Betr, and we got a fantasy business, sportsbook business, soon a casino business, a media business, and there's so many details that like I really want to understand, because I need to understand them to make good operating decisions and want to be able to support the team. And I'm not going to be able to support the team or garner the respect from the team if I don't like know the details of everything going on, and I'm not able to. I need to be able to take those details and make decisions, right? And like I can't imagine like being president. Like there's so much going on across economics, foreign policy, monetary policy, immigration, and these are so consequential to not just the 300+ million people that live here, but the billions of people that are global that are looking to the U.S. for leadership. And it's just you watch that debate and it's like, how are you operating that?
No, I think, I mean, you and I are business people first and foremost, and whether you're Democrat, Republican, everyone can be a customer for our services. So politics aside, I think you're spot on in terms of just like common sense in terms of what you aspire leaders to be like. I mean, maybe like the most sanguine way to just interpret the whole thing is that and maybe this is like just broadly speaking, which is that it is quite fascinating that, and this is across both parties, is that why are we in a gerontocracy? Why is everyone that's running this country in the 70s and 80s?
Yep.
It's like you wouldn't want,
and we're choosing from the same handful of people every time. It's like, think about the last however many years, you had Bushes, and you had George Bush, and then you had Jeb Bush, and then you had Obama, and then
Clintons.
and Biden's and Trump. It's like the same
Yeah.
handful of people that we've been talking about for the last 20 to 25
And
years.
and
they're for the most part, they're all really old.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure you've too. Like, I respect my elders, but it's just like I don't want like my 80-year-old grandfather running a freaking the largest entity in the world.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I respect them, I respect their wisdom, but it's like, hey, there's a lot of shit going on, and if you can only function for 4-6 hours a day, I don't know, man. Like, I know that your job, my job, is more than a 4-hour workday. And I think that goes across just like the whole category of not just the presidential candidates, but just also like Senate, like the leading majority party leaders. All these people are in their 70s and 80s. It's like,
no, I mean, you look at the other side of the aisle, like Mitch McConnell and some of these public.
Yeah, he's freezing up too.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere. And I think there's like a lot of data behind this now. Like, we used to have, I think 2 or 3 decades ago, I think it was like less than 10% of Congress was 70 or older. And I think now it's almost like a quarter. I could be wrong about that. Yeah. I'm just trying to remember from what I've seen online, but it's like, that's concerning.
Yeah.
And that should not be how we're operating.
Yeah. I just know that just from a governance perspective, you don't want a gerontocracy. You want a meritocracy. You want people that are young, not necessarily young, but you want people that are dynamic and sharp.
Yeah.
Right? And this is not even political. It's just like straight up, like, who do you want to be leading and prescribing policy for your group? I want sharp, dynamic people that have a lot of energy. Right, like that's a team I want to back. Right, when I'm looking at startups, I'm not trying to invest in an 80-year-old CEO. I just objectively and maybe this again, I got to be careful, right? Like, I don't want to be ageist, all that stuff. But if you just look at the metrics of how hard this stuff is, how much energy it takes, how much vitality it takes, how much stress it takes. Is someone at the twilight of their life, literally at the twilight of their life.
And look, there's always outliers, right? Like
Warren
I think
Buffett.
all generalizations are false, including this one, is what my 11th grade American history teacher told me, which I think is a good quote. But like, I had lunch with Alan Patrickov a few months ago. I think he's like in his 90s. He's the oldest person to finish a marathon. And I was having lunch with him. He just published a new book, and he's sharp and he has vitality, and it's like, so there's outliers, right? Like he's like a maniac in the best possible way, but like most of the time, if you're 80 plus, you're not in your prime.
I actually just saw actuary data. If you're an average 80-year-old person in America, you have a 15% chance of dying year over year.
Wow.
So it's just like that. That just
it makes sense. So I think the average life expectancy for men in America is 78 right now. So yeah, that makes sense. So that there's a meaningful probability of death, unfortunately, on an annual basis.
Yeah. So
then you're really looking at also who's VP. We don't have to talk about that, but you got to consider that too.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, I don't know. All to say is that. I will say that this is beyond my pay grade, but I think when you're an entrepreneur, you're looking at the world, you're looking at the business you create, and you look at the cultures. It is interesting that as business people, we're in the ecosystem of a larger nation state, and I want this country to be as strong as possible. And it's obviously top of mind because when we're operating businesses, we want to be a part of a healthy society, right? If there's no safety, strong economy, like good policy, then there's nothing for us to be building businesses in. So it's super important. But I almost want to just like pivot back to going back to like the playbooks around how social brands and influencers are becoming more and more important in every single brand. And I think I want to tie this back into our trip to Cannes. We hung out in Cannes and Saint-Tropez. We were a part of the Lions Festival, which happened in south of France a couple weeks ago. We should just talk about our experience there and how this might be a regular thing for us. I mean, we'll include some of the photos and videos and some of the highlights, but I want to get your thoughts in terms of how you enjoyed and how you thought the whole Lions Festivals went down.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So from a sort of tactical perspective, the reason why we went out was because as we have Betr Media, and a big part of our strategy is not just leveraging Betr Media to create brand awareness, brand affinity, and audience growth to benefit our gaming business, to provide this brand halo effect that gives us best-in-class customer acquisition economics for Betr Gaming. That's the primary objective, and it's the predominant one, but it's not the only one. The other objective we have with Betr Media is direct monetization. If we're building this audience, we're building this brand, we can bring on complementary and or non-conflicting brand partners to directly generate revenue from them by giving them access to this audience that we're developing, which is quickly becoming, we're quickly developing the platform for the next generation of sports fans, which is, a very valuable demographic. It's a demographic that not a lot of media companies are successfully delivering content for and resonating with. And this demographic will have higher and higher disposable income over time. So there's a lot of brands that want access to this demographic. So, we've been thinking about, and we've started monetizing Betr Media over the past few months here, and we have some great brand partners that already work with us. Celsius Energy Drink, Game Time Ticketing, Shopify, Liquid Death, recently brought eBay on board. So we have some real brands that are supporting what we're doing. But we're going to, as our platform is really accelerated in growth, we're going to accelerate the monetization and our interest in partnering with other brands too. So long-winded way of saying, like, I've been told by my friends in the media industry for years now that this Cannes Lions place is like the heart and center of the advertising industry in terms of just being the place to be on an annual basis to meet brands, meet agencies, meet talent, and for that side of the business. So that's why we went out, and we'll probably keep going back. I mean, it was kind of what it was advertised to be, pun not intended, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was good, man. I thought it was good. I like never had been to an advertising conference before. Yeah. So like to some extent, it was just educational for me to be out there. I'm sure you have thoughts too, but it was cool. It was like it was educational. It was informative. Met some great people that I probably wouldn't have otherwise met, and it was like in a nice, relaxed environment where people were having fun and networking, and it was cool. Glad we went out.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I took away from it was how important influencers are now a part of advertising.
Yep.
My understanding, again, that was my first time to Cannes Lions, but also my first time in the region, was that I think that the traditional advertising game was, go buy media placement with some random media company and show your brand.
Yep.
And there were so many celebrities there, ranging from F1 drivers, rappers, NFL a lot of people showed up. We were just walking, meeting, shaking hands
many
with
of the biggest names in sports,
just showed
media,
up.
entertainment were just there.
It was a very dense cluster of some of the biggest names that are tastemakers today.
Yep.
And I think that bodes well for folks that operate in our world, where we are blending that mix of influencer and content creation with advertising. So I think my takeaway is that traditional media is moving more to our world.
Yes.
Right? And if you're an old brand that just go buy some TV ads and do some legacy agency stuff, you go to that festival and realize that every single panel was about content creation, celebrity partnership, but not like an endorsement, like a real integration, right? Like I think that's a difference between, I think, what we're pioneering with Jake and the different creators that we're working with. We're not just like, hey, Jake Paul, here's $10, go do something for us. No, he is a true partner, co-founder with us on all of these businesses. And I think that will only continue to I think we're really the cutting edge of it. Like, again, I don't want to claim too much industry thought leadership or not, but I think we are definitely some of the leading folks that are replicating and just defining the playbook, right?
Yep.
Like, there's a reason why Betr Media is winning industry awards. There's a reason why the traction and the speed of the businesses are what they are. I think the old school multinational corpos are going to be copying and like studying us. So if you're a product manager at like these big companies, and maybe you should tune in and ask us questions. We'll mentor you. Maybe you can pay us some consulting fees. Who the hell knows? But I know. But in all seriousness,
yeah.
I think we are figuring out that playbook, right? It is because
Well, I think it comes down to one thing. There's a lot of things, but the way I'll distill it is there's a really big difference between brand awareness and brand affinity. So it used to be the case that before social media, before you had the Jake Pauls, the Logan Pauls, the Mr. Beasts, the KSIs of the world, you essentially just needed, you could use television and radio as kind of the rails to get your brand out there. And, sometimes brands would have really creative and funny advertising content on those traditional rails. Like I think of, Geico with the gecko and Aflac with the duck, which was like very sort of memorable. And I'm not saying it's like the best, but it was very memorable. Yeah. And you're like, okay, like I know what Aflac is. I know it's a place to get insurance, whatever. But that's kind of the world you were in, where it was like, let's do the media buys, let's get our brand out there, and let's have kind of like a quick shtick within the advertising content and get people to remember our brand and associate our brand with a particular service or product. And that's our job. And now, because there's so many different opportunities for consumers to consume content, you're really competing with, all of the different accounts across TikTok, Instagram. You're competing with consumers watching Netflix. You're competing with consumers, out in the world, with experiences or whatever. You really got to be a lot more creative, thoughtful, methodical, I think, with respect to how you break through all this noise and not just have brand awareness, but have brand affinity. You want consumers to like really have this almost emotional connection with your brand, and not just your brand, but also like, and Betr is one of the first companies to do this. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a lot more companies start replicating this playbook of, we have a brand, and then we have influencers associated with our brand who work at the company, and we're incubating this talent, we're incubating these influencers, and now you have like this army of people and creators that the audience has affinity towards and is resonating with. So it's a super effective way to break through the noise, and it kind of does both things, where the more of this talent, breadth of influencers, content creators you have, the more distribution you have, but then the more touch points you have to establish that brand affinity. So for example, like Betr makes a post and Derek's in it and Joey's in it, and it's like, and you just see hundreds of comments of like, they're talking about Derek, they know who Derek is, they're talking about JoJo, and then we've now integrated into the app with featured lineups where you could submit a fantasy lineup rather against Derek.
Yeah, that's so clearly the future.
Yeah,
it's so clearly like the right play.
Yeah, but not that many brands are doing it right now. So we feel like to some extent we're pioneering this, but it's really resulted in unfair customer acquisition economics for the business, and it enables us to then do media buys, scale our paid performance marketing channels in a way that's highly scalable, because the CAC efficiency is there, and our cost per customer is a lot lower. But and then it's changing though. Like brands aren't doing it right now.
Yeah, and I think if you can actually flip it, it can be a cost profit center.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Because then Derek can be talking about other stuff too.
Yes.
And like that's where like the genius is. Or like I think if we do our jobs right, we're going to be wildly successful, and everyone else is going to compete with us, and that's competition. Great. Yep. And then we will figure out the next play.
Yep.
Right. But like that, I think that is the flip.
Yep.
Right? It's like, okay, our advertising is not even a cost center anymore. It's a straight up a profit center.
Yeah.
Like, again, I don't know if that's leaking too much alpha out there.
No. I mean, I've publicly spoken about how, the plan for Betr Media is to not be a loss leader that's a marketing expense for Betr Gaming, but to actually be a profit center, at a minimum break even.
Yeah.
Because then all the marketing benefits we get for Betr Gaming are essentially free.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's opportunity cost with respect to what I and my executive team and my broader team think about and focus on. But if you build this mega media business with tremendous brand awareness and, more importantly, brand affinity, and it doesn't result in a loss to the balance sheet, then it's you've created a lot of leverage for yourself without having to make significant loss leading investments. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. So I think that's where I'm very excited about, just changing how the game or changing how business is done.
Yeah. Right.
And I think it's like, I think you and I are very confident in just terms of explaining this stuff, because I know that like the way we do things is not just like one insight or another insight. It's just that we think we can keep pushing the insights further and further and further. So if you want to compete with us, go ahead.
Yep.
Like, let's sharpen each other's blades. I'm not threatened. I don't think you're threatened.
No, I mean, you were talking about this earlier. Like, competition is good.
Yeah.
It forces us to stay nimble and there's a lot of other smart people trying to do interesting things, and I like to sort of watch what they're doing and learn from it and do it better.
Yeah. I mean, what do you pride yourself on as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a CEO? To me, I feel like I don't pride myself on how much money I have or how much my successes are. I really anchor my value to, I will survive and outwork and be out resilience other people, right? If that is like your core value in of yourself, then it's really hard to defeat me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it sounds like you share that same ethos. I think Jake shares that same ethos, where it's just that, like, I don't care about the previous accolades. Like, come try to kill me, because like it's really hard to kill me.
Yeah.
I think that's the most scary opponent.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? You take everything away, I'm still fucking here. I'm ready to fucking kill you. Like, let's fight it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like that cockroach mentality, like just always surviving, right? But look, I think the money is a good way to keep score.
Yeah.
But that's not it's like a means to an end, because you need capital and resources to like make investments and do things, but that's not the end goal by any means. I think it's probably similarly to the SATs, right? It's like that one universal way to keep score. And and of course there's people who've like kind of inherited wealth, and that's a little bit different, but as a self-made person, it's a good way to keep score. And if I am successful building my businesses and my execution capabilities and insights have resulted in enterprise value and capital for myself, it's just a good way to keep score. But what really motivates me is I want to build businesses that stand the test of time, that continue to innovate and bring a lot of value to millions and millions of people. I mean, I think what we're doing at Betr is going to fundamentally enhance the way sports fans and broader consumers consume sports. And I think that's a really worthwhile thing to build and to focus on, because the three big things, you're in a world of sports, politics, and religion, and it's like sports is the thing that's like kind of unites everybody, breaks through everything, and provides a lot of positive memories, entertainment value for everybody. And to be a company that makes that experience so much better than it currently is, and there's a lot of room for improvement here, obviously, I think it's a worthwhile thing to pursue. And then the game of entrepreneurship and building a business and building a company is it's exhilarating, right? Yeah. It's like, and it's a super long-term game. It's a marathon. I mean, I was talking about sort of been doing this now for 10 years, only started seeing a little bit of success over the last couple of years. and just getting started here, man, and like surviving and advancing and winning and learning I wouldn't want to have it any other way.
Yeah. No, I think it's just fun. And I think when we talk about salesmanship, I feel like one thing that I feel like we've been very good at is that when I think about salesmanship, it's not just being like slick and being like, oh, I'm going to trick you to buy my stuff. It's just like actually having the frame that our stuff is actually the best.
Yeah.
Like that's actually, I think, like the Jedi mind trick of actually being a great entrepreneur. I think when I pitch or I sell, I'm not trying to like, please, Joey, pay, like, give me money.
Yeah.
It's like, no, my stuff is awesome. I'm going to do awesome stuff. And if you want to be a part of it, it's all good.
And if
exactly. And I think it's such a hard frame to be a part of. But I think that is, if you study the best salesperson, that is the confidence and the affect that you need to deliver. Yeah. And I think you've mastered, on the way to mastery or mastered it. I think I have, I guess in some sense, that's something I think about a lot, which is that when I think about pitching investors or LPs or finding partners, I hate hard selling. And I think that's something that like you've internalized very well too. It's just that we're on a clear trajectory. We're in a clear mission. This is what we believe should exist in the world. This is all the stuff that's going for us. And if you want to be involved, here's an opportunity to be involved. And I think so much of new entrepreneurs, new founders try to just sell you so hard. And it almost in like a slimy way. And I think it takes learning, like, also just like, I think most people just don't actually have enough mastery, actually. I think most people want to be rich, but don't want to be and want to be like a CEO, but don't put enough work to actually deserve it. And I think that's like one of the lessons that I want to keep sharing in terms of having these casual conversations where I don't think we're saying, hey, I'm super smart or Joey's super smart. I think by the fact of sharing our war stories, hopefully that wisdom comes across, right? Like, yeah. I think that's like the best way to sell, which is that here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I'm working on, here's what I see, and here's what I think the future is. If you want to be a part of this, come join, come invest, come be a partner. If not, all good. You can check back in a year and our company will be worth 10 times more. Yeah. That's the way to play. Yep. I mean, curious your reflection on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think, you're, as an entrepreneur, you got to get very, you don't necessarily want to get comfortable with it because you don't want people to say no. Like you want to get investment. You want people to join your company as employees. You want to make that sale. You want to make the thing happen, yeah. But it's just probabilities. Like you're out there and you're pitching and, you're going to get told no a lot. And I think that, instead of, again, it goes back to like, I'm either winning or I'm learning, right? I learn a lot from the no's, but not just learning from the no's, but rather like, I think just as importantly, like using those to put chips on my shoulder. And I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that this person, not in like a vindictive way, but like I want them to regret not investing in my company, not joining my company. I want, I think about, not everybody, said yes to joining Betr at the very beginning or investing in Betr. Like Bessemer has a good anti-portfolio, for example, where they talk about all the misses that they have, which is, I encourage you all to read it at some point. It's interesting. I want the investors who passed on the Betr Series A 10 years from now
be like, fuck.
to think about how not investing in Betr was the biggest regret they've ever made in their career.
I want to stick on that point because I feel like, is that a common trait? I feel like I share that. Like I want to just be like, ha ha ha, you thought I was dumb? Who's dumb now? Like that actually motivates me a lot. When people try 100%. To fuck me over or like make fun of me, that hate fuel is like the most motivating thing.
You've seen it in my career, man. I have the biggest fucking set of chips on my shoulder of all time.
But I don't think a lot of people are built that way. I don't know. Like, I'm actually curious for the audience and the listeners. Are you built that way? I feel like a lot of people don't like that kind of confrontation or that like revenge hate motivation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually curious when you talk to friends or other entrepreneurs. To me, it's just like, yo, I want to. You talk down to me, fuck you. Like, I'm gonna fucking like prove you wrong.
Yeah.
That like really motivates me. Like, I think hate fuel is so powerful for me.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a motivator for you.
I mean, honestly, like, I think proving people wrong is
literally the best.
is more interesting to me than money. Serious. I mean, it's just, I don't know why. Like, maybe
we're
I should
cutting the
like,
same cloth.
I should get a therapist or talk to a psychologist or something and understand, like, maybe I'm sure there was maybe something in my childhood that like wired me that way. But like another quote that, somebody close to me told me, when I had a lot of adversity in my career, the best revenge is living well and being successful. And, you're going to try to build something, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to have, disappointing people and situations happen. And just winning is like my mentality is like, my way out is to win. Like, we go through and we win. And but it is like kind of interesting to like, because you're right, like not everybody's like actively seeking to like be told no and then wanting to prove that person wrong. But like, I like get off on that shit.
Same. I just wonder, what is the probability distribution in the population? I think I'm actually curious in terms of the best entrepreneurs, like how many people are cutting that cloth.
I'm sure it's a common denominator amongst many of the most successful entrepreneurs, and then I'm sure there's people who are like not cut that way and they're just
doing it for
really
the
smart and they've like they're just brilliant and they're good at what they do and they have high integrity and they do the right things and they're successful too. But I'd be willing to bet that like most of the top entrepreneurs thrive off of having not just chips on their shoulders, like boulders on their shoulders. And that's certainly how I feel.
Yeah, same. And I think maybe it's good to amplify that. Like, I want to market it. If you fuck me over, I'm going to like work extra hard to like get back at you.
Yeah.
Because I want that formidable reputation, right? Like, you come at me, you miss, I'm coming back after you, right? Like, that's probably a good reputation and a good affect to have in some sense, because you want people to double check, like, hey, like, do I want to tangle with these guys, right? Like, do I want to mess with Joey? I don't know.
I mean, the truth is, and I don't want to get into specifics at all here, but like, and you know some of this, but like, without this dynamic, Betr doesn't exist. Like, Betr exists because I
know what you're talking about.
I will win or die trying.
Yeah, and I think that's like because it's so hard to make a massive $1 billion plus business, that is the bar that it actually takes. I feel like, I would love to have that conversation once some of these chips like land and we can actually like talk about some of the other interesting things that are going on, more behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I think that will be a very, very interesting war story to talk about. Because we're all in there.
Yeah, and it's complicated, and it's not like super cut and dry, and a lot of it's gray. And I've certainly made a lot of mistakes in my life and in my career, but but yeah, there've been some boulders on my shoulder and on my shoulders, and it's very motivating. And I think it's cool that we're like talking about it a little bit, because I feel like it's not a super popular thing to talk about, but I'm sure there's a lot of other entrepreneurs who may be listening to this or not who like feel that way, but I don't know if anybody's like kind of articulated how it feels to them. So yeah. I
mean, I almost just want to just flip back to just more fun, positive things in terms of just, Cannes Lions, obviously very, very productive on the business side, but it was also a lot of fun. And I think it might be worth talking about the VC startup meme of venture capitalists all being on vacation in the summer. And everyone's in Europe traveling and all this stuff. Yeah. And curious to get your thoughts and perspective on, like, we were out there, so we saw a lot of VCs and business people out there. Maybe I'll start on this one, which was that Cannes Lions was such a weird conference for me because I've been in a lot of industry conferences, but they're oftentimes in like normal American cities, and it's like pretty.
And they're like in expo centers.
Yeah, they're in like convention centers, so it's
and
like
these
pretty
are
tight.
like you're going from one beach to another beach to like a restaurant to
I mean,
definitely didn't feel like a
this is south of
conference.
France, which as if folks who haven't traveled internationally, I mean, this is just like some bougie European vacation spots. Or I mean, like I think south of France, Côte d'Azur, like Saint-Tropez, Monaco, like these are just like vacation spots for people, right? So it's just like to me, it was just a, like you had a French Riviera vacation where people started sipping Aperol spritzes and rosé in the afternoon, but it just so happened to be so many media executives and CEOs and celebrities all in town for that week, where it was like a very relaxed French Riviera vacation vibe, but it just so happened that like business was being discussed.
Yeah.
Like it was a very interesting vibe. I'm curious your takeaway from just like the social side of the event.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a lot of fun. And, it was held in an environment where, people are going on vacation, regardless of that event. But what I like about it is like, because we don't have time for vacation. And, I also touch upon sort of this like successful founder / investor, sort of trend of just going to Europe for the summer and fucking off and like actually being on vacation. But it was cool because like I don't have time for a vacation. I don't want to take a vacation. Like I love building this business. I need to be here to build this business, or I need to be elsewhere to like take meetings and, go to places for the business. But if there's an opportunity to like do something for the business and get business done, but also like get a taste a little bit of like that vacation type vibe, then like you kind of kill two birds with one stone. I think it's, taking, I guess vacation too is like, I don't know. I like people have different perspectives on this. I think it could be good to like reset and recharge to some extent. Like I know work-life balance is something that people talk about and is important to them. I may have said this on here or somewhere else, but like, Bezos talks a lot about the work-life balance kind of being a bullshit, mentality, and it's more about like work-life harmony is the way he puts it. And I would say that this event was kind of like that, right? Where it was like got a lot of business done. It was definitely like good and productive for the business to be out there, but it was also like you get to enjoy the environment a little bit too. So but then in terms of like going to Europe and fucking off for the summer, like I just can't do that. I don't think you could do that either. But like, there's a lot of founders and VCs who are doing that, and like, it's become like a meme on X and these other places. Like, it's just, I don't know. And maybe there's some business being done out there, right? Because it's a concentration of like very successful people doing it, and I'm sure they meet up and all that. But I'm trying to build like a company and a culture, and showing up at the office as often as I can is, I think, really important to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's like showing up in Saint-Tropez and going to the opera was fucking wild, man. But we're going to talk more about that
place.
But to me, like I've always, when I look at a reset, and I think we were talking about this, I want to do like meditation. I want to do like a hard wilderness retreat, or just like go hike 500 miles or something. To me, like that is a good reset. Whereas like we're in Miami, like we can go to like
we can go out.
Like we've gone out. Like
and some of the best places in the world to go out.
So to me,
here.
it's like when I think about like this, I need to go to Europe to go out. It's like no, we can go out. So but so it's like kind of interesting to like. I don't really go out that much. It was like interesting to go out with and see some of the Saint-Tropez and Cannes going out scene. But to me, it's like very atypical because in my personal life, I'd prefer to just like go backpack or just go. Like I'd rather just like do a dark retreat and just sit in a dark hole for 7 days, or like do like a meditation thing for like 5 days, or like go hunting or something, or go spearfishing, versus like go to Europe, south of France, and go to l'Opera and like see some like.
Because then you end up needing a vacation from that.
Yeah, like
that's got like got back to Miami. Was so happy to get back and just dialed in, right?
Yeah.
Because, but my perspective on the whole like summer in Europe vacationing thing is, and I'm not like frowning upon it.
Yeah.
Like I think everybody will make their own decisions, and like their decisions and their actions reflect sort of where they're at and their priorities and what they want to do, and it's like totally fine. But like I'm 29, you're in your early 30s. Like if we're successful in what we're trying to do, Betr, Anti-Fund, 305 Ventures, the whole thing, like 5, 10, 15 years from now, like we'll take our private jet to the mega yacht in Ibiza and we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and chances are like 5, 10, 15 years from now, we're addicted to building these businesses. So like we still may not even want to do that, but like you know what I mean? Like I still don't feel as if I've like, I don't feel like I've earned the right to like do that yet. Like
Right.
I have way more work I need to do.
Yep.
And when I do it, I want to do it in, the most comfortable way possible.
Yep.
Hopefully that doesn't sound like an ass, like being a douchebag, but like that's how I want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I think having more resources to be efficient in enjoyment is great. But I think to me, it's I don't even think it's about the activity itself. I think it's doing it with cool people.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's like it, and when you're to be able to do it with like the coolest people possible, then you have to have an epic setting.
Yeah.
Right. So like that, I think is like the reason why you want to have the creature comforts.
Yeah.
But I think even speaking towards like the super billionaire vacations, I like, and I've seen aspects of that. I don't think people that have infinite money have a better vacation than quote unquote normal people. It's just like a convenience factor, right?
Yeah,
like you can go
yeah.
spearfishing, you can go on a boat.
That's fair.
Like you guys went on a boat. Like no one's a billionaire yet.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I guess
but I think it's like who you get to do it with,
Yeah.
and how convenient it is the big difference.
yeah.
So for like folks who are up and coming, it's like I don't think the people who get there have like a completely different like vacation experience or something.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can go drink some alcohol and it could be in a really expensive bottle or a cheaper bottle. It's still ethanol.
Yeah.
Right, like a Don Julio or a whatever Cristal versus a whatever cheaper brand.
Yeah.
You're still just drinking ethanol, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you have the DJ plays the same freaking presses the same button for the same music.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a boat or a bigger boat or a smaller boat. You're still on the same beautiful water.
Yeah.
So I like, to me,
No,
it's
and to clarify my comment, like it's less about like the flexing and like needing that. It's more about like I'm very ambitious with what I want to build on the business side. That like when I do feel like I've earned the right to like do that, perhaps like on a more regular cadence, like I want those like capabilities because again, it goes back to money as being like a good way of keeping score.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that incentive is super important. But I would also just say that like you can only eat so much stuff. It's like how much Wagyu can you eat? How much caviar can you eat?
Yeah.
How much whatever can you eat? It's like at a certain point you only need to eat 22,000, 2,500 calories a day. I don't need like straight up like infinite Wagyu or Toro or whatever fancy stuff. So I think the hedonism game actually maxes out quite quickly. And I think the most meaningful stuff is just like sharing that with great people. And I think great people to me is like people that are super smart, that are top of their field. So the money is not to go buy stuff from me. The money is to earn the right to hang out with the smartest, most ambitious people in the world. Because those people can choose to hang out with anyone they want. So like, of course, if you don't have anything interesting to talk about, why would they hang out with me? Like, I'm not anyone special.
Yeah.
But if I have something interesting to talk about or something interesting to bring to the table, then they will want to hang out with me. So to me, the building businesses and getting capital is not how much, like, doesn't matter if I'm wearing a $10 piece of pants or $100 pants or $1,000 pants or $10,000 pants, right? Like, to me, it's always fascinating to me that some of the richest people in the world own luxury brands. It's just like, why is a random logo worth selling some Italian leather product or French leather product to me with 95% gross margin? And these people make so much money extracting clout from everybody who like aspire to these brands.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it and love it because it works on me because I'm like, oh, I want that logo. That's dope. But I also know that it's just complete fucking marketing. But it works.
Yeah.
And then you realize that these people, like Bernard Arnault, Pinel family that owns like YSL and all these brands, they're as rich as friggin' Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like,
no,
holy, like what the hell? Like an Italian bag in like a champagne bottle is worth a freaking spaceship?
Yeah, no,
like,
on the one hand, Elon revolutionizing the automobile industry, revolutionizing sort of how we interact with space.
And your girlfriend wants a little Hermes bag?
And the guy who's kind of like selling
cool
status, I guess, or perceived status, however you want to, whatever you think about it, is they're at par in terms of economic. It's interesting when you frame it that way.
Yeah, so like I respect it and appreciate it, but I'm just like, damn, like I've definitely been propagandized to like respect it because when you wear some fancy logoed up stuff, I'm like, oh, you must be successful. But I also know that it just bobbles.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, when the conquistadors went to discover New America with like little cheap glass, you're like, oh wow, like these must be gods. It's like, I understand that dynamic, but I fall and prey to it. And it's just like so fascinating to me that even though I think we probably all recognize that all these logos, Louis Vuitton, whatever, these expensive stuff, kind of meaningless, but we all play into it.
Yep.
So I think it's a constant battle internally for me. It's just like work for real substance, real value. I mean, I think capital resources buys you into the room, but I think we all need to think about why you want to be in that room.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, I don't need like a watch. Like your friggin' Timex or your iPhone tells you time more accurately than your Patek, right? It's just like straight up actually more accurate. But I don't know, you want that like gold little jewelry thing, right? Like it's the acceptable man jewelry. It's like some fancy watch that you spent a lot of money on.
Yeah.
Like why? I don't know, but we all like seem to like respect it.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm bored, I think about it like, hey, like why am I caught up in this propaganda of like art and jewelry and stuff? But anyways, going back to like the core point, which is like, I think to me, like why I would aspire to that is to have the context and be able to host like great people with me.
Yep.
Right. And if these people can be smart and ambitious and they want the creature comforts to hang out and so I can learn from them, that's worth it to me.
Yeah.
I feel like we should do an audience call. Like, audience, if you're listening and you want specific answers, whether it's Betr, Anti-Fund, W305 Ventures, if you're a new entrepreneur looking to raise your first angel investment, to experienced entrepreneur, you want to talk partnerships, like almost this is an invite to say, hey, like, Joey and I are doing this for you guys.
Yeah, no, super happy to do that.
Yeah.
Happy to do that if people want to. I mean, what's the best way for people to like leave a comment or set something up or?
Yeah, I think we should leave a comment and then, or just shoot DMs to, I know Joey's on social media, I'm on social media, whatever handles, you guys can go find it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let's wrap this up.
All right, man. This was fun as always.
All right. See you guys next time.
All right.